I live in a small, quiet town where the seasons dictate life more than clocks do. My work as an agricultural scientist keeps me grounded, literally, as I spend my days trying to find better ways to grow the food that sustains us. My life was a peaceful rhythm of work, home, and my wonderful fiancé, Adam. I thought my wedding day would be the beautiful crescendo to our love story, but it turned into the day I realized the family I was born in to would never truly see me. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The morning of my wedding was chaos, but the good kind. The air in my small bridal suite was thick with the scent of hairspray and lilies. My bridesmaids, a whirlwind of pastel dresses and excited chatter, flitted around me like butterflies. I sat in front of the mirror, a serene smile on my face as the makeup artist applied the final touches. For once, I felt like the main character in my own life. It was a rare and precious feeling. Growing up, the spotlight was never mine. It was permanently fixed on my younger brother, Omar. He was the golden child, the one destined for greatness in the corporate world, while I was the quiet, studious daughter who preferred soil to spreadsheets. My parents, Javed and Samina, weren't cruel, but their pride was a currency they spent exclusively on their son. My achievements, like earning my master's degree in a specialized field, were met with a polite, "That's nice, dear." Before the conversation inevitably shifted to Omar's latest internship, or a minor award he'd won at his university's business club. Adam was the one who taught me my worth wasn't determined by their applause. A brilliant and kind software developer, he saw a strength in me I hadn't recognized in myself. He celebrated my passion for sustainable agriculture, listened for hours as I explained the intricacies of crop rotation, and looked at me with an admiration that felt like sunshine after a long winter. With him, I didn't need a spotlight because his love was an all-encompassing glow. Our wedding was planned to be a reflection of us, intimate, personal, and heartfelt. We chose a beautiful botanical garden for the venue, a place where my love for nature and his appreciation for elegant design could meet. We wrote our own vows, curated a playlist of our favorite songs, and spent months on small details that we hoped our guests would appreciate. We had about 100 guests, a close circle of friends and family who had supported us on our journey. My parents had been surprisingly involved in the planning, or so I thought. My mother, Samina, insisted on helping with the floral arrangements, while my father, Javed, took charge of coordinating the catering and the speeches. "Leave it to me, Naila," he had said, puffing out his chest. "I'll make sure everything is perfect for my daughter's special day. The toasts will be memorable." I was touched by his enthusiasm. It felt like, for this one day, they were finally putting me first. I saw their involvement as an olive branch, a sign that our family dynamic was perhaps maturing as I started a new chapter of my own. I should have known better. The ceremony was everything I had dreamed of. When I walked down the aisle and saw Adam waiting for me, tears welled in his eyes, the rest of the world faded away. In that moment, surrounded by lush greenery and the people we loved, we promised each other forever. It was perfect. The sun was setting as we moved to the reception area, casting a warm, golden hue over everything. The atmosphere was joyful, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Friends from university, colleagues from work, and Adam's warm, welcoming family all mingled together. His parents embraced me, calling me the daughter they'd always wanted. For a few blissful hours, I was just a bride, blissfully happy and in love. Adam's best man, Bilal, a wonderfully witty graphic designer and Adam's childhood friend, gave a toast that was the perfect blend of humor and heart. He told stories of their youthful misadventures and spoke of Adam's character with a sincerity that moved everyone. Then it was my maid of honor's turn, and she delivered a beautiful, tear-jerking speech about our friendship. Everything was going exactly as planned. The schedule my father had so carefully overseen listed him as the next speaker, for the traditional father, of the bride toast. I squeezed Adam's hand under the table, my heart swelling with anticipation. This was it. This was the moment my father would stand up and publicly acknowledge his love and pride for me. I was so naive. My father stood up, microphone in hand. He beamed, but as I looked closer, I saw his gaze wasn't on me or Adam. It was sweeping across the room, commanding the attention of the audience in a way that felt more corporate than celebratory. He looked less like a proud father and more like a CEO about to unveil a new product. "Good evening, everyone," He began, his voice booming slightly through the speakers. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate this wonderful occasion. A wedding is a milestone, a time when we look to the future and celebrate success." He paused for dramatic effect. I smiled, thinking he was about to say something about my future with Adam, and speaking of success. He continued, turning his body slightly to gesture towards the table where my brother was sitting. "It is with immense pride that I get to share some other incredible news with you all today." A knot of confusion tightened in my stomach. I glanced at Adam, who gave me a bewildered shrug. My mother was beaming at my father, a look of pure, unadulterated pride on her face. Omar, meanwhile, was preening. He straightened his tie and ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a smug smile playing on his lips. He looked like he was waiting for his cue. My father went on, "As many of you know, my son, Omar, has been working tirelessly at his firm. He is a brilliant, dedicated young man who has always made his mother and me so proud." He was speaking about Omar. At my wedding, during the toast that was meant for me, I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. This couldn't be happening. It's not often you have all your most important friends and family in one room. And my father said, his voice swelling with emotion. "So, I couldn't pass up this opportunity. Samina and I would like to be the first to officially announce that Omar has been promoted to junior marketing manager." The room fell silent for a beat, a collective moment of confusion. A few of my parents' friends, who understood the family dynamic, started a hesitant, scattered round of applause. Omar stood up and gave a small, theatrical bow. He caught my eye for a fraction of a second, and in his gaze I saw not a hint of apology, only triumph. He was enjoying this. My father wasn't done. For the next 10 minutes, 10 excruciating, humiliating minutes, he spoke only of Omar. He recounted Omar's journey from a visionary, high school student to a prodigy at university, and now a rising star in the marketing world. He talked about Omar's ambition, his leadership skills, and the bright future ahead of him. He didn't mention my name once. He didn't mention Adam. He didn't mention our marriage. My wedding reception had been hijacked and turned into a corporate promotion party for my brother. I felt the blood drain from my face. My smile was frozen, a brittle mask I was desperately trying to keep from cracking. Beside me, Adam's hand found mine again, his grip firm and grounding. He leaned in and whispered, "Naila, are you okay? What is he doing?" I couldn't answer. A lump had formed in my throat, thick and suffocating. I watched as my father finally wrapped up his speech. "So, let's raise a glass, not just to the happy couple." He added, almost as an afterthought, a quick nod in our direction, but to the future, to success, to my son, Omar. The toast was met with a smattering of polite, awkward clinks. Most of our friends looked deeply uncomfortable, their eyes darting between my father, my brother, and me. They knew something was profoundly wrong. I felt hundreds of pairs of eyes on me, a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. I felt small, insignificant, and utterly humiliated. The beautiful, perfect day I had dreamed of was shattered. The joy had been siphoned out of the room, replaced by a thick, heavy awkwardness. My father handed the microphone back to the DJ and returned to his seat, looking immensely pleased with himself, completely oblivious, or perhaps indifferent, to the emotional devastation he had just caused. He had stolen my moment, my one day, and handed it to my brother on a silver platter, and he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I remember trying to eat, but the food tasted like ash in my mouth. Friends came up to our table to offer their congratulations, their smiles tight and their eyes full of sympathy. They'd say things like, "Beautiful ceremony, Naila," and pointedly ignore what had just happened, which somehow made it worse. The air was thick with the unspoken. Adam was my rock. He kept his arm around me, his presence a silent promise of support. "Don't let them ruin this." He murmured into my ear, "This day is about us, just look at me." I tried, I really did. But every time I caught a glimpse of my family's table, I'd see my father laughing, patting Omar on the back, as various relatives went over to congratulate him. They had created their own little celebration in the middle of mine. I needed to escape. I need some air. I whispered to Adam, my voice hoarse. He nodded, his expression full of concern. "I'll be right back." I slipped out of the reception hall and into the cool night air of the botanical gardens. The path was lit by soft, glowing lanterns, and the scent of night, blooming jasmine, filled the air. It should have been romantic, but I just felt numb. I found a secluded bench hidden behind a large weeping willow tree and sank onto it, finally letting the tears I'd been holding back spill down my cheeks. My beautiful white dress, the symbol of my new beginning, now felt like a costume for a tragic play. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I heard voices approaching. I quickly wiped my tears, not wanting anyone to see me like this. I stayed hidden behind the thick curtain of willow branches, assuming it was a couple looking for a quiet moment. But then I recognized the voices, and I froze. It was my mother, my father, and Omar. That went perfectly. My father was saying, his voice brimming with satisfaction. Everyone important was here to hear the news. The regional manager of Omar's company was at table 7. Did you see his face? He was very impressed. My breath caught in my throat. This was planned. I was a little worried Naila would be upset. My mother said, her voice laced with a dismissive tone. She looked a bit pale. Oh, she'll get over it. Omar scoffed, his voice dripping with the arrogance I knew so well. It's her wedding day. She's supposed to be happy anyway. Besides, this was a strategic opportunity. Dad was right. I couldn't have asked for a better platform to announce my promotion. It makes me look good that my family is so proud they'd announce it at a major event. My heart felt like it had been put through a shredder. Strategic opportunity, a platform. They were talking about my wedding as if it were a business conference. My father chuckled. Exactly. Naila gets her party, and you get the career boost. It's a win-win. She has Adam now, she's settled. Your career is just getting started. We have to focus on what's important for the family's future. The casual cruelty of his words knocked the air out of my lungs. To them, my entire life, my marriage, my happiness was secondary. I was settled. A problem solved and filed away, so all family resources and attention could be redirected to the important project, Omar. My mother added the final blow, and honestly, what would your father have talked about in a toast for Naila anyway? Her work with plants, it's not exactly thrilling stuff. Omar's achievement is something people understand. It has prestige. That was it. That was the moment something inside me broke. It wasn't just that they had embarrassed me. It was the realization that they didn't respect me. Not my life, not my career, and not my marriage. My work, which I was so passionate about, which contributed something real to the world, was dismissed as a quaint hobby. They saw no value in it because it didn't come with a fancy title or a corporate ladder to climb. I sat there, hidden in the shadows, listening to the 3 people who were supposed to love me unconditionally discuss how they had deliberately and strategically used my wedding for their own gain. They weren't just thoughtless, they were calculating. They had seen my happiest day as nothing more than a convenient stage for my brother. When their footsteps finally faded, I remained on the bench, the cold stone seeping into my skin. The tears were gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a social blunder. This was a deliberate act of disrespect, the culmination of a lifetime of being made to feel second, best, and I was done. I was done being their footnote. I returned to the reception hall a different person. The hurt was still there, a raw, open wound, but it was now overlaid with a layer of icy resolve. Adam saw the change in my eyes the moment I sat down. What happened? He asked, his voice low. I told him everything. I recounted the conversation I'd overheard, word for word. With each sentence, the color drained from his face, replaced by a deep, simmering anger. He had always been aware of my family's favoritism, but he, like me, had never imagined they were capable of such calculated cruelty. They planned it, Adam. I whispered, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. They used our wedding as a networking event for Omar. Adam's hand tightened around mine. Naila, I am so sorry. This is monstrous. He looked over at my family's table. Their laughter now seemed grotesque, their smiles like masks hiding a deep, seated toxicity. We're leaving, he said decisively. We can just slip out. We don't have to stay here and endure this. Part of me wanted to. I wanted to run away and never look back, but another part of me, a part I hadn't realized was so strong, refused to be driven away from my own wedding. No, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. No, we are not going to let them chase us away. This is our night, but this changes things. This changes everything. As the night wore on, memories began to surface, each one a small piece of a much larger puzzle. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and I was seeing the past 25 years with horrifying clarity. I remembered my high school graduation. My father gave a short, perfunctory speech at my party, but a week later, at a small family dinner, He spent an hour boasting about Omar winning a regional debate tournament. I remembered the day I got my acceptance letter for my master's program. My mother's response was, "That's wonderful, dear. Just make sure your studies don't get in the way of finding a nice husband." 2 months later, when Omar got a summer internship at a local marketing firm, they threw him a surprise party. It was a pattern, a consistent and deliberate devaluing of my accomplishments while inflating every minor success of my brothers. They hadn't just favored him, they had actively worked to diminish me, to keep me in my place as the supporting character in the grand saga of Omar's life. Their love was conditional, and the condition was that I never outshine my brother. My choice of career, something so far removed from their corporate world, had made it easy for them. As my mother said, it wasn't prestigious. It didn't fit into the narrow narrative of success they had constructed for their family. I thought about the wedding planning, my father's insistence on handling the toasts, my mother's sudden interest in the guest list, asking detailed questions about who Adam's parents were inviting. I realized now they were vetting the audience. They wanted to know if the right people, the people who could be impressed by Omar's promotion, would be there. The fact that the regional manager of Omar's company was a distant cousin of one of Adam's relatives suddenly made sense. They had seen his name on the guest list and saw their strategic opportunity. The pieces all clicked into place, forming a picture that was ugly and undeniable. My entire life, I had made excuses for them. They're just from a different generation. They just don't understand my work. They're just proud of Omar. But it wasn't just pride. It was a conscious choice to prioritize his ego over my feelings, his career over my milestones, his moment over my entire wedding day. The hurt began to harden into something else. It was no longer just about a ruined toast. It was about reclaiming the respect I had been denied for my entire life. It was about showing them, and myself, that I would no longer accept being second best. I looked at Adam, my partner, my husband. He was watching me, his eyes filled with unwavering support. "What do you want to do?" he asked softly. "Whatever it is, I'm with you." I glanced at the schedule card on our table. The last official event of the evening was listed as final remarks and thank you. It was supposed to be a brief, joint thank you from both me and Adam, but I saw another opportunity, an unscheduled one. A better one. Then I looked across the room and saw Bilal, the best man, watching us with a look of deep concern. He had seen the whole thing unfold, and his expression was one of pure disgust at my family's behavior. An idea began to form in my mind, an idea that felt both terrifying and incredibly liberating. I excused myself from the table again, but this time I walked with purpose. Adam squeezed my hand as I left, a silent signal of his trust. I made my way to the table where Bilal was sitting with the rest of the bridal party. He saw me approaching and immediately stood up, his face etched with concern. "Naila, are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and serious. "I saw what your dad did. I have no words. I am so sorry." "I'm not okay, Bilal." I admitted, my voice steady. "But I'm not going to let this go. I overheard them. My parents and Omar. They planned it. They called my wedding a strategic opportunity." Bilal's eyes widened, and his concern quickly morphed into cold anger. He was fiercely loyal to Adam, and by extension to me. He had known Adam since they were 5 years old and viewed him as a brother. "You're kidding me," he breathed, shaking his head in disbelief. "They actually planned to humiliate you like that, at your own wedding." "They did. I confirmed, and I need your help. You're the best man. You gave a speech. Do you think you could give another one?" A slow smile spread across Bilal's face. He understood immediately. "An unscheduled speech. I think the occasion calls for it. What do you have in mind?" We moved to a quieter corner of the hall near the gift table. I laid out my idea. I didn't want a screaming match or a messy, undignified scene. I wanted something precise, something that would expose the truth in a way they couldn't deny or twist. I wanted to use their own love for appearances against them. They wanted to make an announcement in front of an audience. Fine. We would give the audience the full story. The DJ is scheduled to give us the microphone for a final thank you, I explained. Adam will go up and thank everyone for coming. Then he's going to say that his best man was so moved by the evening that he wanted to say a few final words to send us off. And that's my cue. Bilal finished, his eyes gleaming with a kind of righteous fire. "What do I say?" "You don't talk about them directly." I instructed. "You don't mention the promotion. You do the exact opposite. You give me the toast my father should have given. You talk about me. You talk about my work, my achievements. You talk about what it means for Adam to have found a partner who is not just loving, but brilliant and accomplished in her." Own right, you make it so painfully obvious what was missing from my father's speech that everyone in the room feels it. I took a deep breath, the plan solidifying. And then, for the finish, you tell the story of how Adam proposed. You tell them how he flew all the way to that remote research station where I was working on a drought-resistant crop project, how he set up a picnic in the middle of a field and told me that my dedication to feeding the world was the most amazing thing he'd ever seen. You tell them that story, Bilal. You make sure my parents and my brother and their important guests hear what real love and respect looks like. Bilal was completely on board. As a graphic designer, he was a natural storyteller, someone who understood the power of narrative and presentation. He was perfect for this. We spent the next 15 minutes talking through the key points. I gave him the details of my research project, the name of the institution I worked with, and the specifics of Adam's proposal. He absorbed it all, his mind clearly arranging the information into a powerful narrative. They wanted to play corporate politics at your wedding. Bilal said, his voice hard as steel. They used it as a networking event. So we'll give them a keynote speech they'll never forget, about a woman who is changing the world one seed at a time. When I returned to Adam, I felt a renewed sense of strength. I told him the plan. He listened intently, and when I was finished, he pulled me into a hug. It's perfect, he said. It's elegant, it's powerful, and it's all true. Let's do it. For the next hour, we acted as if nothing was wrong. We cut the cake, we had our first dance, and we mingled with our guests. I even managed a tight, polite smile whenever I had to interact with my parents. They were oblivious, basking in the glow of Omar's success, completely unaware that the ground was about to shift beneath their feet. They thought they had won. They thought they had successfully managed the narrative of the evening. They had no idea that the final chapter was yet to be written, and this time I was the one holding the pen. The evening was winding down. The band had finished their last set, and the DJ was playing softer music. As per the schedule, he announced it was time for the bride and groom to say a final thank you. Adam and I walked to the small stage, hand in hand. The remaining guests turned their attention to us. My heart was pounding, but it was a drumbeat of anticipation, not fear. Adam took the microphone first. He was calm, charming, and gracious. He thanked his parents for their love and support. He thanked my parents, and I saw my father puff up with pride for helping to organize the wedding. He thanked our friends for traveling to be with us and for filling the day with so much joy. He was the perfect groom. It's been an incredible day, he concluded, his eyes finding mine. Marrying Naila is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and seeing all of you here to celebrate with us means the world. He paused, then turned back to the audience. There have been so many beautiful words shared tonight, but one person was so moved that he asked if he could share one final toast to send us off on our new journey. So, I'd like to welcome back my best man, my brother, Bilal. He handed the microphone to Bilal, who had quietly moved to the side of the stage. A few people looked surprised, but no one objected. Bilal took the mic, his expression serious and composed. My parents and Omar watched with mild curiosity, probably expecting another round of light-hearted jokes. "Thank you, Adam," Bilal began, his voice clear and steady, commanding the room's attention. "I know I've already had my turn, but I felt it was important to say one more thing. We've heard a lot tonight about success. We've heard about promotions and career ladders, and that's wonderful, but I want to talk for a moment about a different kind of success." He turned his body to face me directly, but his voice was projected for everyone to hear. "I want to talk about Naila. Some of you may not know the specifics of what Naila does. She's an agricultural scientist. That sounds simple, but it's not. While some people are climbing corporate ladders, Naila is working to solve one of the biggest problems our planet faces: how to feed a growing population in a changing climate. A hush fell over the room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father shift uncomfortably in his seat. My mother's fixed smile began to falter. Bilal continued, his voice filled with genuine admiration. For her master's thesis, Naila spent 6 months in a remote part of the country developing a strain of wheat that can grow with 50% less water. That project, which she led, has the potential to help thousands of farmers in drought-stricken regions. Her work isn't about prestige or titles, it's about service. It's about leaving the world a better place than she found it. That, to me, is the definition of success." He let that sink in for a moment. He was a brilliant speaker. He hadn't raised his voice or used an accusatory tone, but the contrast between his words and my father's speech was deafening. He was painting a picture of my life's work with the respect and detail my own family had always denied me. "Adam has always known this," Bilal went on, his gaze now including my husband. He's always seen the incredible woman Naila is, and I want to share one quick story that I think perfectly captures who they are as a couple. This was the moment. I held my breath. When Adam decided to propose, Naila was halfway across the country on a research grant, living in a tiny cabin with unreliable Wi-Fi. She was testing soil compositions for a new nutrient-rich fertilizer. So what did Adam do? He didn't just call. He booked a flight, rented a car, and drove 3 hours to her research station. He found her in the middle of a field covered in dirt, happier than he'd ever seen her. He didn't take her to a fancy restaurant. He laid out a blanket right there, next to her rows of experimental crops, and asked her to marry him. He paused, letting the imagery settle in the minds of the audience. And do you know what he said to her? He said, "I want to spend my life with a woman who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty to make the world grow." He didn't fall in love with a title or a position. He fell in love with her passion, her intelligence, and her heart. The room was completely silent. Every eye was on Bilal on us. I glanced at my family. My father's face was pale, his mouth set in a thin, hard line. My mother looked like she was about to be sick, and Omar? Omar just looked stunned, as if he couldn't comprehend what was happening. His moment, which he had stolen, was being systematically dismantled and replaced with a tribute to me. Bilal raised his glass. "So I'd like to propose a final toast to Naila and Adam, to a partnership built on genuine love, profound respect, and a shared commitment to building a better future, not just for themselves, but for everyone. May your life together be as fruitful and as beautiful as the gardens you both work so hard to cultivate." To Naila and Adam. This time, the response was immediate and overwhelming. To Naila and Adam. The room echoed. The applause was thunderous, genuine, and sustained. It wasn't polite or awkward. It was a heartfelt celebration of us. Our friends were on their feet, cheering. Adam's family was beaming. As Bilal stepped off the stage, he gave me a small, discreet nod. Adam wrapped his arm around my waist and pulled me close. The tears in my eyes this time were not of sorrow, but of profound, cleansing relief. I had not screamed or caused a scene. I had simply let the truth be told, and it was more powerful than any argument could ever have been. The aftermath of Bilal's speech was immediate. The warm, celebratory atmosphere returned to the room, but it was now centered firmly on Adam and me. My family, on the other hand, was radioactive. No one approached their table. They sat in a bubble of stunned, embarrassed silence. The important guests they had been so eager to impress were now actively avoiding their gaze. Within 10 minutes, they were gone. They slipped out without a word, without a goodbye. I watched them go, my father's stiff back, my mother's hurried steps, my brother's downcast eyes. There was no dramatic confrontation. There didn't need to be. Their public shaming was quiet, complete, and of their own making. They had craved the spotlight, and in the end, it had burned them. The rest of our wedding night was everything it should have been from the start. We danced, we laughed with our friends, and we felt nothing but love and support. When we finally left the reception, driving off into the night, I felt an incredible sense of lightness. It was as if a weight I had been carrying my entire life had finally been lifted. I wasn't just Naila, the bride. I was Naila, a woman who had finally stood up for herself. The next morning, my phone was silent. No angry texts, no missed calls. It stayed that way for days. They had no defense for what they had done, and Bilal's speech had left them with no narrative to spin. He had simply told the truth about my life, and in doing so, he had exposed the poverty of their values. Adam and I went on our honeymoon, a trip to a beautiful, remote eco-lodge, and for 2 weeks I didn't think about them at all. I focused on my new husband and our future. We talked about everything, our career goals, where we wanted to live, the family we wanted to build, a family built on the foundation of mutual respect that Bilal had so eloquently described. When we returned, a letter was waiting for me. It was from my mother. It was a rambling, self-pitying mess, full of phrases like "you embarrassed us," and "how could you let your friend do that?" She accused me of being ungrateful and claimed they had only wanted what was best for the family. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the hurt they had caused. It was all about their own wounded pride. I read the letter once, then I put it away. There was nothing left to say. I didn't reply. My relationship with them wasn't something to be fixed, because it was now clear that it had been broken from the start. You cannot build a healthy connection with people who see you as a supporting character in someone else's story. It's been a year since the wedding. My contact with my parents and brother is virtually non-existent. I hear things through the grapevine, that Omar is struggling to live up to the hype my father created, that my parents are bitter and isolated. I feel a distant sadness for them, but I do not feel guilt. They chose their path, I chose mine. My life is full. My work is thriving, and I recently received a significant grant to expand my research. Adam and I are a team in every sense of the word. We celebrate each other's successes, big and small. His family has embraced me as their own, and our home is filled with the kind of unconditional love and support I had always craved. Sometimes I think about that night. My father wanted to make an announcement about the future, about success. In a way, he did. He announced the end of our family as I knew it, and Bill's speech marked the beginning of my true future. It was the moment I stopped waiting for my family's approval and started cultivating my own happiness. My hands are still dirty, my work is still not prestigious in their eyes, but my harvest is a life of love, respect, and peace. And that is a success they will never understand.